Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Weaving Web3. I've got a wonderful special interview for you guys today. I'm here with Nikita and Gleb from Vortex Foundation. They are a market maker, but with a difference. So, I will leave it to you to give a little introduction of what makes you you.
For sure, for sure. Pleasure to meet pleasure to be here and pleasure to meet everyone for sure. I'm Gleb, CEO of Vortex. Also, there is Nikita on the call here, and Nikita is Chief of Sales at Vortex and Head of BD. Basically, we make markets efficient. That's what Vortex does.
So, what is your difference compared to a traditional market maker? What is your niche? Because we all know the traditional market makers have either traders, buy and sell orders. What is your difference?
For sure. So first of all, there are multiple business models on the market right now in crypto for market making. Basically, the traditional model of market makers, basically how traditional market makers work, is they provide liquidity. Mainly market makers, the traditional ones in crypto and in stock market or elsewhere, are liquidity providers. The difference between us and simply liquidity providers is that apart from providing liquidity, there is also a wide range of services involved in our market making, other than just liquidity providing. So those services include full token support in the sense that we help clients that we support with liquidity, also with advising, with business development opportunities, with trading tips, with trading strategies for their markets. We supplement their markets with whatever goals they might have in mind. So also, apart from providing liquidity, what we do for projects is that we outline the goals with them, the goals that they may have or may not have for the token prior to token with us. And basically, the goals that they have in mind for the token, we make sure that those goals are fulfilled. Those might be certain price targets for investor-wise for the end of the year, or like certain market scenario they want to meet, or make sure that they accumulate tokens like in a meaningful manner. Because, for instance, all projects have certain goals they want to make sure that their token hits, or like certain objectives they want to make sure that they are able to get from the market. Like basically they're able to fulfill those on the market. And Vortex acts as a full token partner in this sense, like apart from traditional market makers that are simple liquidity providers and their goal is to always remain delta neutral and basically make like their money on this.
Well, interesting. So, what would you think is the biggest misconceptions of market makers in the Web3 space? Because a lot of people, when I speak to them, market makers like, oh, big scary people, they're just here to make money. They're dumping on the retail and stuff like that. And we also recently heard with the whole Binance scandal that all the market makers were given a secret meeting about basically they're going to be paying this fine, and they obviously took advantage of this. I potentially not accusing anyone. But do you think there's a big like shift in the space that market makers are not in the interest of the public?
Well, Stanislav, to answer your question in terms of, like misconceptions, obviously there are, and they have been a lot of cases of major market makers doing potentially something very sketchy and leaking certain information and taking full advantage. And unfortunately, it's something that has been happening, and there have been a couple of scandals, and you can find them in press. And it doesn't add any good to the industry, because some guys decide to take advantage and make quick money, and this is unfortunately that they're in our market segment. But if we're being totally honest here, I think if you look at any market, there are always companies which don't play by the book, which take advantage and destroy an image for a whole sector. So
do you foresee?
I think to also assess the question, I think it's important to note that in everything that there is on the market, not only in crypto, there is a market maker to everything. That's something that people don't understand. That market maker is not essentially the guy that something that Nikita mentioned, like market makers are not essentially those guys that just dump on retail. But what people don't realize is that market makers are there for almost everything. Like any token people see, even Bitcoin, like there is a market maker. There still is a market maker for every exchange, for every pair. And it's important to note that market makers may indeed act with, let's put it this way, different intentions. And there are indeed companies with different approaches on the market. I'd say that if we go just slightly deeper into what Nikita mentioned, then definitely we might see certain moves, let's go this way, that are definitely not something that market makers should do. And those moves, one of the most recent examples is that's honestly one of the most least favorite ones, is how Wintermute operates on the tokens that it launches. Because basically how Wintermute operates, and for people who are more familiar with NFTs, I think that the sufficient example would be Blur, the Blur listing,
Yeah.
for people mostly interested in NFTs rather than crypto. They could see that with the Blur listing, like basically there is a very big green candle made in the very first like opening minutes, and then it just dump. It's like straight dump for hours and hours and hours on the retail, with a goal of like making the lowest possible price on the chart, and then like immediately pumping it back up.
Yeah.
That's a classic pump and dump. And for people who are more familiar with crypto rather than NFTs, I think that the most recent example was WorldCoin as well. Like purely same scenario. Like WorldCoin is just going down for days and weeks straight, because that's what's happening. Like with launches that market makers like Wintermute make, we can definitely see that they favor dumping on retail. They favor dumping like on those people to make sure that that's the classic scenario, unfortunately, for crypto, called pump and dump. And what
Yeah.
their CEO says that that's not something that that's not something that they're familiar with, but that still happens with every launch they make. And I think that's a result of something called low regulation for the industry, because even though market makers are regulated, like GSR and are very regulated,
Yeah.
still there is no way to control pump and dumps in crypto. So yeah, things like this, I don't think that it's even right to call it like that they might happen. I think that they happen every day,
Yeah, that's what
unfortunately.
I was going to kind of go on to. Do you think that there needs to be some more regulatory oversight on market makers in the crypto space?
Definitely, and I'm not a big fan of like saying that crypto in general should be as regulated as possible. I think there
No.
should be boundaries, but regarding market makers, it definitely should be regulated more, because there is crazy amount of wash trading being done. There's crazy amount of people who are operating with let's put it this way, not good intentions when it comes to market making. There are certain schemes that market makers make on an everyday basis that basically should not happen. Like if they were to be done on the stock market, like on the American stock market, those people would be in jail. But in
Yeah.
crypto, that's not illegal. So
It's
that's
still like the Wild West right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
definitely, definitely it's crazy, especially in DeFi. Like if we talk about taxes, like I mean, if we talk about Binance or those exchanges, like it's Wild West, but it's bearable. But if we talk about DeFi or like exchanges that are ranked lower than the best ones, it's crazy what happens. Like it's crazy what manipulations have been done in the market. Like uh, I'll tell you this: a lot of projects that we see on CoinMarketCap or like on rankings or wherever, like most of the rankings that are done for them, most of the price action that we see on their charts, most of the things in crypto are purely artificial. Like their volumes, their price action, their strategies, like whatever, most of the things are purely artificial. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like the thing is, a lot of people it discourages a lot of people to come into crypto because of these fluctuations. Like you could be up 30% 1 minute and then it goes down 100% the next. And it's just like, I do definitely think needs to be some more coordinations between all these entities, the DeFi users, the market makers, and like the big companies is to, well, we want this field to advance because it's going to change the world. But right now it is fend for yourself, and if you don't understand it, you're pretty much losing the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And, on top of that, like results of, let's say, poor regulations and, like poor practices happening daily. As a result, the end consumers struggle, the projects struggle, and it does a lot of damage to the image of crypto as a whole, to the project, to specific cases, to specific investors. So, definitely correct regulatory action. And I say correct, not just,
Yeah.
100% like iron wall around everything, but just right direction and and taking the right steps would actually help and make everything far more efficient, safe, and have a better climate for new projects to come in, and and for traditional, let's say, even like outside of crypto people to come in and explore the market.
Yeah, no,
That
absolutely. No, go for it.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say definitely. I don't get why a lot of people have this misconception that regulation is necessarily bad. It's not. Like regulation may be different, and when we talk about regulation for customers, like or like the consumer sector, that's one regulation. When I talk about regulation in business sector, like for institutions, for market makers, for other big companies in Web3 that actually influence the way how the markets go. That's definitely something that should be there. Otherwise, crypto will continue to stay the wild, wild west where investors are vastly unprotected, like where people who buy NFTs or buy crypto or whatever are just unprotected by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. This is now I'm going to say something that James would usually say. Like, regulation is kind of important because he's a cryptocurrency tax accountant. Because if I trust you and you collapse and there's no regulation oversight, you've pretty much gone and lost all my money. Like, more regulated entities need to make sure they have like reserves back 1-to-1. So if they collapse, you will still get your money. And that, I think that is the big kind of like problem with the nature of having how much regulation do we actually need, and how are you backing up your assets?
Of course, and like this, let's say not having these regulations also impacts, like, let's say, traditional investors to come into this market, because why
Yeah.
would they have these higher risks to come into this sector and actually have zero protection over anything?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't incentivize them to actually come in and bring in their money. So,
Yeah.
I think fixing that would definitely help out with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like recently, the last few weeks for crypto have been crazy. We've seen Bitcoin go above, I think, 120% this year, and we're teetering above nearly at 40K. We're right now at 39.8.9K. And like from what I was speaking to you earlier, thinking the market makers basically a few days ago, it was $8 off 39K, and then they dumped it. And I'm kind of thinking, could we not see 40K in the next few weeks or up to Christmas? Or are we just going to go down? I personally think there's going to be another Black Swan event because, like we heard with BlackRock saying USDT and USDC are a threat to Bitcoin and for it continued growth. Do you necessarily agree with that? Or do you think like we're going to see 40K, or are we back in the bull market? Like, personally, I do not think we're in a bull market yet until we have the last bits of like kicking out of the bad actors.
Yeah, I'd say we're definitely not in the bull market. It's very early to say that we are there. I don't even get like why most people think that, because most of the arguments suggest that the prices are growing, but other than Bitcoin surging, like that's not a sufficient condition for markets to be in a
Yeah.
bull. Like apart from first of all, like first things first, what is a bull market? A bull market is not only Bitcoin at all-time high. A bull market is not only about the price of Bitcoin or ETH. Bull market is also about the activity of venture funds, activity of new projects that are entering the markets, activity of the institutions outside Web3 that are entering Web3. Like it's about the activity in various sectors that overall fuel organic growth of crypto rather than Bitcoin just surging to 40 or 50 or 60K or to the all-time high level of like 65K. Like that's not only price related. So
Yeah.
definitely not bull market yet because activity of most institutions is still very low. But the markets are also much better than they were in the beginning of the year. Like that's also
Absolutely.
that's also true. That's also definitely true. And even with the projects we work with, like even outside of the major coins like Bitcoin or Ethereum, even outside of those major assets, altcoins are also like feeling pretty good right now. Like especially like KuCoin or HTX markets, like those kind of markets are also feeling very good right now. We actually had this month we had more than 4 cases of our clients like surging by more than 500 or 600% only in November.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, like obviously there's a lot of work required for projects to actually feel like those kind of uptrend for the markets. Like it's not only trading related, it's also like they're fundamental related and etc. But there is much more demand right now on the markets in general for even smaller coins, like let alone Bitcoin. So yeah,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
but one of the interesting things that we've noticed actually when observing the markets is that a lot of the growth, especially on the earlier stages from 26K to 32K, was actually attributed to USDT printing the new tokens. Like every
Mm.
time 1 billion USDT was printed, like immediately in the next like several hours, the market started moving up. Previously, when they've done it in the past, like past year or like in the beginning of this year, when they've done it, they waited for like weeks before they actually like put them into markets.
Yeah.
But right now, just like a week before CZ announced that he's gonna pay a 4 billion fine, and like Binance is gonna pay 4 billion fine, and CZ is gonna pay like 170 million for the bailout. Just before that, a lot of liquidity instantly and mostly in Binance started going into the market. So it's
Yeah.
very important to say that what Vortex has been observing and a lot of on-chain analytics has been observing is that a lot of the growth right now is actually artificial. That's very important for people to understand because a lot of people think that the markets, when they surge, they're always surging organically. Like that's not true. Something that's happening right now is definitely something that happens as a result of I don't like this word, I don't like to say this word, but it's definitely market manipulation.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, I'm glad that I'm not the only one that thinks, because I definitely think this has been too suspicious. There's so much bad things going on, but the price is going up. It does not feel right, for sure.
It's
For
same.
sure, as a market maker, like as a market maker who observes the market every day and works with a lot of clients, like I can definitely tell you that this is done by a market maker as well. For sure, like it's always done by a market maker. Nikita, I think I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, I was about to say that it's a similar situation where in COVID, like S&P hit all-time highs, but all of the factories were shutting down.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, for sure. For sure. That's
Obviously
actually
not the same, but it is a very good comparison to what is happening right now.
No,
just a
absolutely.
fun fact. That's actually how me and Nikita started working together. We both first we basically we've I'm not sure what's the right word to say here. Like I wouldn't necessarily say predicted. I don't like this word, but we were one of the first ones in one of like circles and the financial circles as well to actually call out that that there is going to be massive inflation on the US dollar because there was a variety of factors involved, but obviously the
Yeah.
most important one was that US dollar was being printed massively, and we were actually I'm one of the first people within our circle, obviously, like not in the world,
Yeah.
who were starting to say that like guys, chances are US is might hit recession soon, like and people are and all time like S&P 500 was still not at the all time high, like and people were saying, are
Really?
you like
Yeah.
the market is growing like and that's how me and Nikita started like working together on the financial side of things.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a really cool story.
Yeah, just a fun fact as
That
Nikita
if only I knew you and I could have started shorting.
actually, like about 2 months after we predicted that, actually, S&P 500 like was still not falling. Like same as in
Yeah.
2008, like S&P 500 was still hitting an all-time high before falling down massively. But even right now it's actually back up. So still a good time if you believe that US might hit a recession.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. Do you think of any specific like narratives that are going to be coming out? Because I hear between different circles, sometimes people are still thinking AI is coming back because when first AI came out, it wasn't really that useful. But now we're seeing like the better models. We're also seeing GameFi, which I personally think is a massive scam. The like I just don't believe that big companies want to go into GameFi and lose billions in revenue because some people want to share some revenue with each other, even though I do think it's a good idea. But also, my background as a scientist, like democratizing science, is it called DSci? So I don't know. Do you have like any? What do you think is going to be like the next big narrative?
I'm sure that Nikita has an opinion on this as well. I'm just gonna mention first that regarding the game time that you mentioned, I think that it's a very good thing to bring up right now because GameFi is it's been around for quite a while already, but in crypto, I mean, but right now it seems to get like the attention that it had during 2021 in the
Yeah,
bull market. It seems to be hot again, if you know what I mean. And
yeah,
there is GameFi itself is a very good idea in itself. Like the idea that you might play games and get money for it, like that's the dream of every child. Like that's a dream of
no,
everybody out
of
there.
course, yeah,
Yeah, not just like in a sense you can still do it today. Like I mean, by playing certain games, you might get like certain rare in-game items like that. Theoretically, you might sell on Steam or whatever. But GameFi is a whole revolutionary new idea where like
yeah,
you I mean, it was in 2020, basically in 2021, where you get crypto for playing. But the idea itself, as I mentioned, is good, but the way it's executed is actually very poor. And like I'm a very huge fan of a lot of projects, like their idea and the team behind, like those people are great. Vortex also works with a lot of play to earn tokens. Like that's also that's a very vast, I would say, category of projects to work with. But the way how the projects are executed is actually the reason why GameFi is still not massive, because basically every tokenomics for GameFi that was designed is still up to date Ponzi. It's still up to date, like the tokenomics where you purely depend upon new users entering your game, and
Absolutely.
that's how, yeah, like basically every token is bound to new people entering the game, and when new people stop entering the game, it's
The
immediately,
liquidity, the money and stuff. Yeah, at the end of the day, those
yeah.
projects don't lead to critical mass. And that's why I'm always so skeptical, because no offense, I'm a gamer myself. Like the OG GameFi is CSGO and TF2. That's where the real market basically began. That's what, and there is no game out there like on Web3 that does achieve that. Like I always have a conversation. My argument when people saying, "Oh, GameFi is amazing," why would Epic Games go to Web3 selling skins when they're making billions from people buying cosmetics and stuff like that? And now people are going to be trading these cosmetics. Sure, Epic Games is going to get some fees, but it's not going to be just. It's not going to be near the amount if they're having people purchasing these skins. So from my point of view and from my background, why would these big institutions want to be giving away their basically tokens and stuff, even though they're going to be making less money? But at the same time, that if critical mass reaches, they'll probably make more money eventually in the long run through like trading fees and stuff. But I just don't think we have a AAA game that's going to be like, okay, we need Web3. Web3 blockchain should be in the background. It should be the game first. That's my point of view as a gamer as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. The technology itself is great, but there is just no point in big Web2 companies leveraging anything into Web3, like in
Absolutely.
token wise. Like there is no point in making the play to earn game when you already earning billions, as you mentioned. Exactly. And also one of the problems, like that's also something that prevents GameFi from going massively is like I don't want to offend people, but I'm gonna be straightforward here. Most of the games that are designed as play to earn games are shit. Like they are impossible to play. They
Yeah.
are their demos, their betas, like their gameplay is just horrible. Like it doesn't engage users or players like in any
Mm.
way, because well it takes millions and millions of dollars as well as like years of expertise to design an actually playable game. Like I mean massive studios that are building games, they are building them for years and years and years and millions of dollars, like, and they have massive teams for this. Like obviously when you have a startup that has barely like under $1 million budget and like 10 team members, like obviously you can't design
Yeah.
anything that can compete in it barely. So that's also one of the reasons, like the low budget.
yeah,
No,
but you know, like to add to that, a lot of founders of these projects, they get carried away by the blockchain component of
mm,
they
absolutely.
get carried over, you know, with the whole like concept and everything, and they start to believe in this, and the game itself comes to the, you know, like it stops being a priority, and this is something that I noticed just, you know, like talking to the people that have like stands on the conferences and so on and so forth, that the game itself becomes not an objective, and I think
Mm,
that this is very weird when you know, you're focusing on the infrastructure around the game instead of the actual product, which is the game. And I think that also, like, you know, to add, a lot of projects are trying to build huge games with, like, you know, huge universes with a very small budget, which is sometimes very difficult. It, you know, these things cost, and there's a lot of time and money involved into actually making and marketing good games. So, and a lot of guys, they just sort of stretch it out a bit too much and take too much of an ambitious project, and then the whole you know, infrastructure comes into play, and you
yeah,
know,
for sure.
product lacks quality in a lot of cases. Not in all of them, not in all of them, in some cases.
It's very interesting to see how projects that don't have funds for development have enough funds for stands at conferences
Yeah, they're so
and
expensive.
marketing, like marketing of all sorts. Like that's definitely something that always scratches my eye a bit. Like, I mean, wait, so you don't have money for developing the product, but you have hundreds of thousands of dollars to like do your road shows around the world. That sounds interesting to me.
Yes, some of these guys go wild on the parties after the conference as
Yeah.
well. I've
As a business
witnessed.
owner myself, like I mean, I'm thinking purely from the business perspective. Like that's just not something that if I have the intention of actually developing the company, that's just not something that I would do with being in a tight budget.
No, absolutely. You need to create that product that will generate you that revenue, not just spend all your money and be like, oh, okay, this is a half-finished game. Because I've been on so many different blockchains. Every single one has basically a tower defense game and they're like it's like a Clash of Clans kind of thing, and they're all the same, but just different skins and stuff. And you just think about it, you've spent millions on the same game that you can play on every single chain. It's not really GameFi, really. It's just copy and paste marketing budget, pump and dump for the VCs, and then let the project basically die out.
Yeah.
For sure, and also like yeah, also one of the things like even if we mention marketing, like even if we touch the marketing sort of things, like you've mentioned tower defense games. It's actually funny that you mentioned them because we're working with some tower defense games like right now as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, like I've just like signed one of them like a week ago, so or like 2 weeks ago. I'm not exactly sure. We helped them with fundraising, but um what I would like to mention, and it's something that I also tell all of them, is that the tower defense itself, like a genre, like the genre itself is very old and it's very popular, like for especially mobile gamers. And it's been around for a while. And why do you think that you can compete with companies like, I mean, I'm not the biggest expert on games, but I think that Clash Royale in a sense is like a tower
Yeah.
defense game, something of this sorts. Like, why do you think you can compete with this? Like, why do you think you can compete with a game like people have been playing for years and there's actually a massive player base? Like, well, because we have a token, right? Right. Like, you think a 15-year-old or 14-year-old is gonna like understand what a token is? That's also like when you target the games that are primarily built for mostly like young gamers, like they're not gonna be into playing to earn. Like I mean, the majority of them, especially because like maybe in US,
Yeah.
maybe in some parts of Europe as well. By the way, I think play to earn is partly legal in US, so that's also one of the things to take a look at. But maybe there, maybe like in most advanced parts of the world, but no way a person like a player in China or in Russia is like, or everywhere else is like playing to earn. Like if their parents are going to find out that those guys are getting some scammy tokens to their wallets,
Yeah.
I, there is not that much trust for crypto right now, so that parents could like or children could like learn to do this. Let's put it this way. That's all something to understand.
No, that makes sense. It's like you need to make sure what the target audience is before you even actually launch your
Exactly.
product.
That's just not something that's possible right now. Maybe in the future, and I'm a big fan of crypto itself. Like, so I hope that in the future, like, there's gonna be much more trust in it, but not right now. Not right now. And definitely play to earn doesn't add this trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like when it first came out, you were having like 13, 14-year-olds making tens of thousands of dollars. And then there was some paper I read where basically the IRS are coming for this person because he's got like 100K of unrealized gains and profit. And you're like, hang on a second, thousands of kids are playing these games. And if then it's basically illegal at the end of the day, isn't it? And the whole loot boxes in many countries, especially in the UK, you have the Gambling Act. You can't have loot boxes. You need to have like known things that you're going to win, and it's just that's what I mean. Like there's going to be a clampdown on a lot of these people that don't even realize it. And it's just often when I talk to these founders, I like to say I'm a knowledgeable person. I tell these about these gambling acts and they have no idea, and it's like, okay, I'm not even going to talk to you because you obviously have not done your research properly.
It's it's a big issue. Like first of all, like let's say like kids earning some money like on some game, and then like having IRS come after them. First of all, like that's a very scary thing that can happen to like a 13-year-old or his parents. Like let's be
Absolutely.
honest. This might be like a very discouraging thing for him to even think of crypto in his whole life and his friends and but in terms of like founders that are not aware of like legal framework, that's actually pretty scary because as a founder, it is your obligation to know everything. At the end of the day, you are responsible for the product, for the team, no matter what happens and what does, you are at the end of the day the person behind this product. So it's very important to make sure that the legal side is covered and you're in the correct jurisdiction and you have everything. And not a lot of people, especially in crypto, like to take legal, let's say, considerations before the problems start. And it's another issue which definitely has to be solved. And I think in the last like 2 years, there has been like huge increase in bunch of legal firms that offer assistance in crypto. It's still a very developing sector, but I'm sure that founders which have budget to develop a game also have a budget to take care of the legal components and make sure that everything is great.
Oh, absolutely.
Actually, just a side story. One of the clients we work with right now, we actually started working with him also like quite recently. I think that was not even a week ago. It was like 5 days ago, I think. That's also a play to earn token. That's also a game. That's a card game basically. With play to earn token. He's registered in Netherlands. Basically, the company's registered there, and he's saying that for the past 2 years, like that he's been trying to do is make things right with the local regulator, like make sure that he's operating legally. And like he mentioned the funny things to me, like he says, every company I come to, like every legal company I come to for consulting, like or for legal frameworks, or like they always treat me as a lab rat because they always say, listen, we've never interacted with those kind of things before. You're gonna be the first one for us. But it's really interesting and curious to try. That's like the first case for us ever with something even remotely close to this.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where the big problem is, because there's not enough skilled people in the industry to actually help these people to prevent them creating fraud and stuff like that. That's why I really like the UK right now, because they are building that community. There's many good lawyers, accountants that are only specifically handling crypto, and that's why I do think a big hub will be in the UK. Just
What on a personal side, as you know, both of us are based in the UK, don't you think that the like regulatory side of things will make it hard
yeah,
for Web3 startups to appear from the UK?
yeah.
Because personally, I think it will kill a lot of incentive in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I did kind of have this conversation with lots of different people, and it's just like it's being drafted, and we need to get the right people to advise the government officials, because I do think some of the regulations that they want to do is a bit dodgy, and it's not really incentivized, even though apparently Rishi Sunak wants us to be the crypto capital of Europe. But right now it seems very much against it. Like in the UK, for crypto in capital gains tax, it used to be 15k, and now they're reducing it to 3k. So why, me as an investor, do I want to be in the UK when I can get a digital nomad visa to countries like Germany, Portugal, many Asian countries, and be tax-free for 10 years? So tell me, why would I want to be in the UK when I can travel basically around the world tax-free for like 10 years?
Yeah, or you can find like a loophole
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
international jurisdiction, and let's say you have like more money to invest, and you want to dedicate 5,000 to 10,000 to for legal compliance. Just avoid it. So it's very difficult system, and the thing is, the truth is, there are a lot of professionals from the UK have helped and consulted bunch of other governments which have today in drafting their legal infrastructure. And I don't necessarily understand why UK wouldn't adapt, because these are like British guys that that helped and consulted a bunch of governments in this. So
they probably let the other governments make all the problems and then make the perfect system. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see, but I know that there are a lot of smart people out there which are more than competent to advise and write perfect legal framework which would be comfortable for startups, investors, and essentially everyone involved in Web3 ecosystem.
Well, maybe we should start up a body and then just start lobby the government. Be like, we know what we're doing. Let trust us.
One thing to consider actually when you take legal stuff into account, one thing to consider is that when we talk about startups, like it's not only about Web3, like, but we can take also Web3 startups as an example. Like when you initially start your own company, like when you initially make your own startup, it's very important to understand that the budget is very tight, and the budget most of the times is very tight for the first stages of your company. Like it always was the case, it always will be the case, because like it only started. And what I really like about crypto um that's something that benefits a lot of founders right now. I don't think that this will be fixed for at least a year or 2 years, that's like one of the personal observations that I've made in the space. I don't think that it's a very popular opinion, but one of the things that I really like about crypto is that there is a lot of things you can, let's put it this way, do later than in traditional business. Like
Yeah.
there is a lot of the stuff that is not really needed for any kind of business. It's just like a legal formality. But in crypto, you can save a lot of money on simplified legal process for the time being, because you're not um you're not reporting as much as in traditional business, like simply because you don't have a way to, like, you can't report every single transaction, and a lot of regulators don't even accept like your transactions in crypto, other than like UK and US might be in the most advanced side here, because a lot of countries don't even recognize crypto as anything.
Yeah.
uh a lot of the processes are really simplified, and that's a really good way for founders that are starting their Web3 startups. Like a very good way for them, they can save a lot of money on legal expenditures for the first like stages of the company while it's not that big. There is no reason to like file all the framework, like license for working with digital assets, like the proper companies, et cetera, at the very start. Like you can do this while you work, and because it's not illegal right now, it's not illegal.
Mm.
And also very important thing is that there is much less operational expenses for Web3 startups than for even simple IT startups, because in Web3 there are a lot of people that work. It will be the case until like crypto does not become the major industry. While it's still like developing, there are also a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about certain ideas, and they can help you like at early stages as well, like join force with you, let's put it this way, and work with you first for the idea.
Yeah.
Web3 is very friendly for startups. Web3 right now is like very friendly. You don't need to have a lot of capital to start a startup right now. And that's definitely one of the factors that definitely drives the industry forward. Like as long as there are smart, intelligent young people who are entering the industry, it's definitely
Absolutely.
going to be moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. That's why there's a lot of these community projects that have people that will help you develop for free and stuff like that. And that's why it is, like, you're right, it's so inclusive. You have that, if you hit your niche, people will flock to you, they'll do work for you for free, and then you can all basically create that community that becomes invaluable. And then that's where your wealth generation comes from.
I mean, it's like first time, I think, like in history of business where, it genuinely became like a community driven
Yeah.
sector. Like, because, 50 years ago, if you wanted to build a factory, well, I guess, your local city wouldn't really care about it.
Yeah.
They would love the jobs, they would, love some economical input into the city, whatever. But it wasn't like, like an interest where the people would volunteer to
Yeah.
like build a
Absolutely.
wall for free. And I think this is like a shift in business approach, which is very good. Obviously, like now all of us are connected on the internet. You can reach any person, any place in the world. You can
Yeah,
have
for sure.
live example, like our podcast right now. And I think it's a shift in the business perception, which is incredible, and it will expand further and further in the coming years.
Oh,
For sure.
that sounds amazing. And like, I just want to slowly finish up now. Where do you think in the next 3 months, what's going to happen in the next 3 months? Do we think we're going to be pushing past 40K, or do we think we're going to have a nice little reset where we're just going to be a bit flat?
Yeah, so I'd say that as a market maker, our main job is to make sure that the strategies that we utilize are always neutral regarding of what the price action is. That's one of the most important things to mention. But obviously, like, as a personal prediction and as a non-financial advice, like something that we mentioned earlier is that a lot of the current growth is attributed to the artificial manipulations on the market. Like a lot of the current growth, that's something that once again a lot of on-chain analytics also observes. Like it's not only us or somebody else, it's most of the on-chain analytics that is there. It observes that a lot of the growth is attributed to USDT printing new tether, $1 billion, CZ pumping this before the fines, like before they were initially fined for Binance. And
Yeah.
right now, the current growth, for instance, like USDT had recently printed money again, and that's also like one of the reasons we're seeing growth right now. I personally think, once again, not a financial advice and not something that uh, I recommend building your positions on, is that we'll see 40K or maybe even 41K, this range, like basically between 40K and 41K, very soon before the end of the year. And I think that January and February are not going to be very good for crypto in terms of like major tokens like Bitcoin, Ethereum wise, and like those top 50 tokens. I don't think that those mounts will be necessarily good for them, because basically what happens before each bull market, basically what happens before even halving events, like basically what happens between each halving event is that actually crypto grows like it grows now, but slightly less aggressive than now, but still it typically
Yeah.
grows. And then it falls back immediately, because a lot of the market started favoring long positions rather than short positions. And basically what the market maker does is that he capitalizes on the market interest, and he basically closes those long positions. Like he just dumps the price and long positions are closed. He makes sure that there's not a lot of people who there. He makes sure that the selling pressure on higher levels is balanced. There is not too much people who actually have had a chance to open long positions at very good prices,
Yeah.
and that price just skyrockets back. Basically, that's a very nasty market manipulation. That's a very nasty thing. But before each growth, it also happens on stock markets as well. Like it happens in every market. On every market, there is a market maker, as I mentioned. And what happens everywhere is that before the major growth, before the major announcement comes out, price always goes up and it always goes down. It goes down slightly to the more or less same levels. People, when the token, like when Bitcoin is growing, people are saying like, we're back, here is the bull market. When Bitcoin starts falling, people say, oh my God, we're in a bear market, like we have to start
Yeah.
selling. People always monitor the trend. People always, like when Bitcoin is falling, people are always saying, oh my God, we have to sell, like this worthless. When Bitcoin is growing, people are always like, why didn't I have a chance
Yeah, for
earlier?
sure.
Yeah, so that's market psychology. Like I think we're definitely gonna see 30K-ish range again.
Okay, interesting. So I'm gonna start shorting up 41K non-financial advice.
You shouldn't do that only based on my opinion.
Yeah, okay. No, that's really cool. Do you have anything else to say, Nikita?
Well, to be fair, it's a very difficult question, to predict the market. I always try to dodge that question because
Okay, we don't have to get dodge.
like in like in Wolf of Wall Street, they say like the market go up, down, sideways, or in circles. Like the truth is, nobody knows, and I try to refrain myself from actually giving valid predictions. All we know is that the clients we work with are going to have a good performance regardless of market conditions and small market movements.
For
That's
sure, for sure.
as
As I
far
mentioned, our strategy is centered around making sure that we capitalize on every market movement rather than just growth or just bump and dumps. Like we capitalize on liquidity, and we always remain delta neutral in this sense.
That's amazing. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on to this podcast and reaching out to me, because you were like you are one of the first people ever that's come up to me and say, oh, I really enjoy a podcast and let's do something. And that was really special to me and to the guys, because like at first we only did it for fun, and then actually I went to another event and they said they've listened to my podcast. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, not in a way, but like I really appreciate you coming on here, and I'm gonna try to spread your message. And yeah, I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to Weaving Web3. And I'm sure we're going to have another conversation very soon in person when the market is better.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And thank you very much for for hosting, for all the questions. I think that it will be useful for the people watching, and was pleasure for us to talk to you. And one question that I have for you is, in the start of the podcast, we were monitoring the Bitcoin price. Can we have a reading on that to see whether our predictions, hopes were accurate?
It's 30. It's still the same price. It's
Same
still
price.
Sideways-ish.
Okay, well,
it's going down slightly. It's 3.983. So we've lost like $30. And my prediction, I do think we're gonna go down. I hope.
Well, history will will tell us. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us here.
Awesome.
It was a
Thank
great
you so
pleasure.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.